Leadership is not something you announce. It's something people feel when they're around you. Chapter 1: Understanding Natural Leadership. You've probably noticed this yourself. Walk into any room, any meeting, any gathering of people, and within moments, you can sense who leads. Not by title. Not by volume. But by presence. There's a stillness to them. A clarity. A kind of gravitational pull that makes others lean in, listen, and trust. This is natural leadership. It doesn't demand attention. It commands it quietly. It doesn't need to convince. It simply exists, and others respond. But what creates this effect? And more importantly, can you develop it within yourself? The answer is yes. But first, we need to understand what natural leadership actually is, and what it is not. The illusion of forced leadership. Let's start with what leadership is not. Forced leadership is everywhere. You see it in managers who bark orders. In people who interrupt conversations to assert dominance. In those who use their position, their credentials, or their volume to create the appearance of authority. Forced leadership relies on external structures. Titles. Hierarchy. Control. It says, I lead because I have the power to make you follow. And people do follow. For a while. Out of obligation. Out of fear. Out of necessity. But not out of choice. Not out of respect. And the moment that external pressure is removed, the leadership collapses. Think about a boss you've had who ruled by fear. Maybe they micromanaged. Maybe they punished mistakes harshly. Maybe they made decisions without input and expected obedience without question. Did you respect them? Or did you simply comply? There's a difference. Compliance is behavior. Respect is emotion. Forced leadership can achieve compliance. But it cannot earn respect. And without respect, there is no true influence. Let me give you an example. Imagine a corporate manager named David. David has been with his company for 15 years. He earned his position through tenure and technical skill. He knows the systems. He knows the processes. And he uses that knowledge as a weapon. In meetings, David speaks over people. He dismisses ideas that aren't his own. He uses phrases like, that won't work, without explanation. He creates an environment where people are afraid to speak up because they know they'll be shot down. Does David get results? Sometimes. His team meets deadlines because they're afraid of the consequences if they don't. But the moment David leaves the room, the energy changes. People relax. They start talking freely. They share the ideas they were afraid to voice earlier. David has authority. But he doesn't have leadership. He has forced compliance. But he doesn't have authentic influence. Now imagine Sarah, a team lead at the same company. Sarah has been there for only 3 years. She doesn't have David's tenure. She doesn't have his technical expertise. But when Sarah speaks, people listen. When she asks for input, people give it. When she makes a decision, people trust it. Why? Because Sarah's leadership is natural. She doesn't rely on her position. She earns respect through her presence, her consistency, and her emotional intelligence. People follow her because they want to, not because they have to. This is the distinction we must understand. Forced leadership creates followers who wait for permission. Natural leadership creates followers who take initiative. Forced leadership builds dependency. Natural leadership builds capability. And here's the critical insight: you cannot force natural leadership. You cannot demand respect. You cannot command trust. These things must be earned. And they are earned through who you are, not what you claim to be. What is natural leadership? Natural leadership is the ability to influence others through authentic presence, emotional stability, and clarity of purpose. Notice what's not in that definition. There's no mention of charisma. No mention of extroversion. No mention of being the loudest, the most confident, or the most outgoing person in the room. Natural leaders come in all temperaments. Some are quiet. Some are expressive. Some lead through action. Some lead through thoughtfulness. But they all share certain core traits. And these traits are not innate gifts reserved for a special few. They are skills, behaviors, practices. And they can be developed. Let's break them down, one by one, with clarity and depth. Calmness, the anchor in the storm. The first trait of a natural leader is calmness. Not passivity. Not indifference. But a deep, steady composure that remains intact even when everything around them is chaotic. Why does this matter? Because people are wired to seek stability. In moments of uncertainty, stress, or fear, we look for someone who seems unshaken. Someone who can hold the center while everything else spins. That person becomes the anchor. And anchors lead. Think about a crisis situation. A workplace emergency. A family conflict. A sudden problem that throws everyone into panic. Who do people turn to? Not the person shouting the loudest. Not the person pacing in circles. They turn to the person who remains calm. The person who says, "Okay. Let's think this through." Calmness signals safety. It says, "I can handle this. You can trust me." And trust is the foundation of all leadership. Let me share a story. I once witnessed a situation in a hospital emergency room. A patient came in with a severe allergic reaction. The family was panicking. Voices were rising. People were talking over each other, demanding action, flooding the space with anxiety. The nurse who stepped in didn't raise her voice. She didn't match their energy. She walked in calmly, made eye contact with the family, and said in a quiet, steady tone, "I understand you're scared. I'm going to take care of this right now. I need you to step back so I can work." The room shifted instantly. The panic didn't disappear, but it organized itself around her calm. People stepped back. They stopped shouting. They trusted her because her composure told them she was in control. That's calmness in action. And it's one of the most powerful forms of leadership available to you. But calmness is not something you fake. It's not a performance. It's a state you cultivate. Through self-regulation. Through emotional awareness. Through practice. You develop calmness by noticing your internal state. By recognizing when your heart rate increases. When your breathing shallows. When your mind starts racing. And then by consciously slowing down. Breathing deeper. Widening your awareness. Choosing your response instead of reacting. This is not easy. Especially in high-pressure situations. But it is trainable. And the more you practice it in small moments, the more available it becomes in large ones. Start today. Notice when you feel rushed. When you feel anxious. When you feel overwhelmed. And instead of acting immediately, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Let your nervous system settle. Then respond. Do this consistently, and over time, calmness becomes your default. And people will feel it. They will gravitate toward you because you offer something most people don't: stability. Clarity, cutting through the noise. The second trait is clarity. Natural leaders think clearly. They speak clearly. They see situations for what they are, not what they fear or hope them to be. And this clarity allows them to make decisions others cannot. Confusion repels. Clarity attracts. When you are unclear, people sense it. They feel the hesitation. The ambiguity. The uncertainty. And it makes them uncertain too. But when you are clear, people relax. They feel oriented. They know where they stand and where they're going. Clarity comes from self-awareness. It requires you to know what you value, what you want, and why you want it. It requires you to cut through noise and identify what actually matters. Let me give you an example from the business world. Imagine 2 CEOs addressing their companies during a difficult financial quarter. CEO 1 stands up and says, "Look, things are tough right now. We're facing challenges on multiple fronts. Markets are down. Competition is fierce. We need everyone to step up and do their best. We'll figure this out together. Stay positive." CEO 2 stands up and says, "Revenue is down 12% this quarter. Here's why. Here's what we're doing about it. We're cutting expenses in these 3 areas. We're doubling down on this one product line because the data shows it's our strongest performer. I need each department to reduce spending by 8% over the next 60 days. Here's how that breaks down." Questions? Which CEO do you trust more? CEO 1 sounds supportive, but vague. CEO 2 sounds direct and clear. Clarity doesn't mean having all the answers. It means being honest about what you do know, what you don't know, and what you're doing about it. People don't need you to sugarcoat reality. They need you to make sense of it. They need you to organize complexity into something understandable. And when you do that, they feel relieved. Because now they know what to focus on. Clarity also extends to communication. Natural leaders don't use jargon to sound smart. They don't hide behind corporate speak. They say what they mean. They use simple language. They get to the point. Here's a practice. Before you communicate anything important, ask yourself 3 questions. What is the core message? What action do I want people to take? What do they need to understand to take that action? Answer those 3 questions. Then communicate only that. Cut everything else. No fluff. No filler. No unnecessary complexity. Clarity is a gift you give to others. It reduces cognitive load. It eliminates confusion. It creates alignment. And people follow leaders who make things clear. Confidence, the quiet knowing. The 3rd trait is confidence. But not arrogance. Not bravado. Not the loud, self-promoting kind of confidence that demands validation. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply knows. It knows its value. It knows its capability. And it moves forward without constant reassurance. This kind of confidence is magnetic. Because it's stable. It doesn't fluctuate based on external feedback. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It doesn't inflate with praise. It just is. People are drawn to this because they want to feel that stability themselves. They want to believe that someone knows what they're doing. That someone has a handle on things. And when you project that quiet confidence, they believe it about you. But here's the key: confidence is not about having all the answers. It's about being comfortable with not knowing and still moving forward. It's about trusting your ability to figure things out, to adapt, to handle whatever comes. Let me tell you about a leader I worked with years ago. Her name was Maria. She was leading a product launch for a tech startup. 3 days before the launch, a critical bug was discovered. The product wasn't ready. The timeline was impossible. Everyone on the team was panicking. Maria didn't panic. She didn't pretend to have an immediate solution. She said, "This is a problem. I don't know yet how we'll solve it. But I know we will. Let's break it down. What are our options?" She didn't fake certainty. But she projected something more important: trust in the process. Trust in the team. Trust in her ability to navigate uncertainty. They ended up delaying the launch by a week. It wasn't ideal. But Maria's confidence kept the team focused. She made the decision clearly. She communicated it directly. And the team trusted her because she wasn't pretending everything was fine. She was acknowledging reality and leading them through it. Confidence is not about never doubting. It's about not letting doubt paralyze you. It's about feeling fear and acting anyway. It's about knowing that you've handled hard things before and you'll handle hard things again. Here's how you build it: start small. Make decisions in low-stakes situations. Trust your judgment. Notice when you second-guess yourself unnecessarily. Practice committing to choices and moving forward. Every time you do this, you build evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. And that evidence becomes the foundation of confidence. Emotional control, mastering the inner game. The fourth trait is emotional control. Not suppression. Not detachment. But the ability to experience emotions without being controlled by them. Every leader feels fear. Every leader feels frustration, doubt, anger, disappointment. But natural leaders don't let those feelings dictate their behavior. They feel them. They acknowledge them. And then they choose how to respond. This is emotional intelligence in action. When a leader loses control, everyone else does too. Emotions are contagious. If you panic, your team panics. If you lash out, your team becomes defensive. If you spiral into negativity, your team loses hope. But if you remain composed, your emotional state becomes the standard. Your team mirrors you. They think, if they're not worried, maybe I don't need to be either. Let me share an example from parenting, because it illustrates this principle perfectly. Imagine a child falls and scrapes their knee. The child looks up at the parent. If the parent gasps and rushes over with panic in their eyes, the child starts crying harder. But if the parent stays calm, walks over slowly, and says, "You're okay. Let's clean that up," the child calms down. The child is looking to the parent for cues about how to respond. The parent's emotional state becomes the child's emotional state. The same thing happens in leadership. Your team is looking to you for cues. How should we feel about this setback? How worried should we be about this challenge? How confident should we be about this opportunity? Your emotional response sets the tone. Emotional control is not about being cold. It's not about pretending you don't feel things. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. It's about pausing before you react. It's about choosing your behavior instead of defaulting to impulse. Here's a practice that transforms emotional control. When you feel a strong emotion rising, name it. Say to yourself, "I'm feeling angry right now." Or, "I'm feeling anxious." Or, "I'm feeling disappointed." This simple act of naming creates distance. It shifts you from being the emotion to observing the emotion. And that shift gives you choice. Then ask, what does this situation require from me? Not, what do I feel like doing? But, what does this situation require? Maybe it requires calm. Maybe it requires directness. Maybe it requires patience. Whatever it requires, you choose that response consciously. Do this consistently and you develop emotional mastery. And emotional mastery is one of the most powerful leadership skills you can possess. Direction, knowing where you're going. The fifth trait is direction. Natural leaders know where they're going. They have vision, purpose, a sense of destination. And that sense of direction orients everyone around them. People don't follow aimlessness. They follow momentum. They follow purpose. They follow someone who seems to be heading somewhere worth going. You don't need to have a perfect plan. You don't need to see every step. But you need to know the direction. You need to be able to say, "We're going this way." Here's why. Direction creates energy. It gives people something to align with. It makes them feel like they're part of something larger than themselves. Leaders without direction drift. They chase trends. They react to circumstances. They get pulled in every direction by every voice. And people stop following because there's nowhere to go. But leaders with direction move. And movement, even imperfect movement, is compelling. Let me tell you about a community organizer I met named James. James wanted to reduce homelessness in his city. He didn't have funding. He didn't have political connections. He didn't have a detailed plan. But he had direction. He said, "I'm going to create a network of housing resources and connect homeless individuals to them. I don't know exactly how yet. But that's the direction. That's what we're building toward." And because he had clarity of direction, people joined him. Volunteers offered time. Organizations offered space. Resources started flowing toward the vision because the vision was clear. Direction doesn't mean rigidity. James adjusted his approach many times. He learned. He adapted. But the direction never changed. And that consistency kept people aligned. Here's how you develop direction: start with values. What matters to you? What do you care about? What kind of impact do you want to have? Then translate those values into a direction. Not a detailed plan. Just a direction. I want to build a business that prioritizes employee well-being. Or, I want to create art that challenges people to think differently. Or, I want to lead a team that values collaboration over competition. Once you have that direction, communicate it. Share it. Let people know where you're headed. And then make decisions that align with that direction consistently. Over time, people will see that you mean it. They'll see that you're not just talking. You're moving. And they'll want to move with you. Integrity, being who you say you are. The sixth and final trait is integrity. Integrity is the alignment between what you say and what you do. It's consistency. It's trustworthiness. It's the sense that you mean what you say and you'll follow through. People will forgive many things. They'll forgive mistakes. They'll forgive imperfection. But they won't forgive dishonesty. They won't forgive manipulation. They won't forgive a leader who says one thing and does another. Integrity builds trust. And trust builds loyalty. And loyalty is what separates natural leadership from forced compliance. If you want to lead, you must be someone people can rely on. Not just in the big moments, but in the small ones. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. Integrity is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about owning your mistakes. It's about showing up as the same person in every context. And when you do that consistently, people know they can trust you. And trust is the currency of leadership. Let me give you a real example. I once worked with a manager named Tom who made a commitment to his team that he would fight for their bonuses during a tough financial year. He told them directly, "I will advocate for you. I will make sure leadership knows how hard you've worked." 2 months later, the bonuses were cut across the board. Tom could have stayed quiet. He could have blamed upper management. He could have avoided the conversation. But he didn't. He called a team meeting and said, "I promised I would fight for your bonuses. I did. I presented your results. I made the case. But the decision was made above me, and I couldn't change it. I want you to know I tried. And I'm sorry I couldn't deliver what I promised." The team respected him more after that conversation than before. Why? Because he showed integrity. He owned the outcome. He didn't hide. He didn't make excuses. He told the truth. Integrity means doing what you say you'll do. It means admitting when you can't. It means being transparent about your limitations. It means not promising what you can't deliver. And it means keeping your word, even when it costs you something. Here's a practice: before you make a commitment, ask yourself if you can truly keep it. If you're not sure, don't promise. Say, "I'll try, but I can't guarantee it." Or, "I'll do everything I can." That's honest. And honesty is integrity. Also, track your commitments. Write them down. Follow up. If you say you'll get back to someone by Friday, get back to them by Friday. If you can't, let them know before the deadline passes. These small acts build a reputation. Over time, people learn that your word means something. And when your word means something, your influence grows. Leadership starts within. Here's the core truth that underpins everything we've discussed: leadership starts within. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot inspire confidence if you are riddled with self-doubt. You cannot create calm if you are internally chaotic. You cannot project clarity if you are confused. Others follow what you project. Not what you say. Not what you claim. But what you radiate. Think about it. You can tell when someone is insecure, even if they're pretending not to be. You can sense when someone is anxious, even if they're smiling. You can feel when someone is dishonest, even if their words sound right. We are deeply attuned to authenticity. We sense congruence. And we sense incongruence. If you want to lead, you must first work on yourself. You must develop emotional stability. You must cultivate self-awareness. You must align your actions with your values. You must become the kind of person others naturally respect. This is not about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming more fully who you are. It's about stripping away the performance, the pretense, the fear-based behaviors, and letting your true strength emerge. Natural leadership is not a mask you put on. It's a core you build. And once that core is solid, everything else follows. Let me tell you what this looks like practically. It means doing the inner work. It means examining your triggers. Understanding why you react the way you do. Noticing your patterns. Recognizing when you're operating from fear versus when you're operating from clarity. It means developing self-discipline. Not the harsh, punishing kind. But the kind that helps you follow through on commitments to yourself. If you can't keep promises to yourself, you won't keep them to others. It means building emotional resilience. Learning to sit with discomfort. Learning to tolerate uncertainty. Learning to face conflict without shutting down or lashing out. It means practicing daily. Not waiting for a leadership position to start leading. But leading yourself first. Leading your day. Leading your choices. Leading your responses. And here's what happens when you do this: people notice. They don't notice because you're performing leadership. They notice because you've changed. You carry yourself differently. You respond differently. You show up differently. And they start to trust you. Not because you told them to. But because you've demonstrated, through consistent action, that you are trustworthy. This is how natural leadership develops. Not through force. Not through titles. But through becoming someone worth following. The path forward, practical steps to begin today. So how do you develop these traits? How do you build that core? It starts with awareness. You must see yourself clearly. You must notice your patterns. Your reactions. Your triggers. Your strengths. Your weaknesses. Begin by observing yourself for 1 week. Don't try to change anything yet. Just watch. Notice when you feel calm. Notice when you lose your composure. Notice when you speak clearly. Notice when you get confused. Notice when you feel confident. Notice when doubt creeps in. Write these observations down. Create a simple journal entry each evening. What situations triggered strong emotions today? How did I respond? What worked? What didn't? This awareness is the foundation. You cannot change what you cannot see. Then comes practice. You must train your mind. Your emotions. Your responses. You must practice calmness in small moments so it becomes available in large ones. You must practice clarity by simplifying your thinking. You must practice confidence by taking action despite fear. Here are specific practices you can start today. For calmness, practice breath control. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Sit quietly. Breathe slowly. Count to 4 on the inhale. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Repeat. Do this once each morning. This trains your nervous system to return to baseline quickly. For clarity, practice decision-making. Make small decisions quickly. What to eat for lunch? Which route to take home? Don't deliberate endlessly. Choose and move forward. This builds decisiveness. Also, practice explaining complex ideas simply. If you can't explain something in simple language, you don't understand it clearly. For confidence, take one small risk each day. Speak up in a meeting. Share an idea. Make a suggestion. Start before you feel ready. Action builds confidence. Waiting for confidence before acting keeps you stuck. For emotional control, practice the pause. When you feel triggered, count to 10 before responding. Literally count. This creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, you regain choice. For direction, write down your values. What matters most to you? Then write down one long-term goal that aligns with those values. Look at it daily. Let it orient your decisions. For integrity, track your commitments. Keep a list of promises you make. Review it weekly. Follow through on everything. If you can't, communicate early. Build the habit of reliability. These practices seem simple. They are. But simple doesn't mean easy. And it doesn't mean ineffective. These practices, done consistently, will transform you. And finally, it requires consistency. One moment of composure doesn't make you a leader. One clear decision doesn't create trust. But a pattern of behavior does. Over time, people learn who you are. And if who you are is someone steady, clear, confident, and reliable, they will follow. This is not a quick process. It's not a technique you apply once and master. It's a way of being you develop over time. But it is possible. And it is worth it. Why this matters: the ripple effect of natural leadership. Because the world needs more natural leaders. Not more bosses. Not more people who demand compliance. But more people who inspire trust. More people who create calm. More people who lead from within. Think about the impact one natural leader can have. In a family, a natural leader creates stability. Children feel safe. Conflicts get resolved constructively. Everyone knows they matter. In a workplace, a natural leader creates performance. Teams feel motivated. People take initiative. Creativity flows. Turnover decreases. In a community, a natural leader creates change. People organize. Resources mobilize. Problems get solved. And it starts with one person deciding to lead differently. To lead authentically. To lead from the inside out. You can be one of those people. The traits are not out of reach. They are inside you, waiting to be developed. And the moment you begin, everything changes. Not instantly. Not dramatically. But gradually. Steadily. Person by person. Interaction by interaction. Your influence grows. Not because you're demanding it. But because you're earning it. Your first step, a commitment to yourself. So take a breath. Settle into yourself. And ask, what kind of leader do I want to become? Not what title do I want to hold. Not what position do I want to achieve. But what kind of presence do I want to embody? Answer that question honestly. Write it down. Make it specific. I want to be someone people feel safe around. Or, I want to be someone who brings clarity to confusion. Or, I want to be someone who follows through on commitments. Whatever your answer is, let it guide you. Let it become the standard you hold yourself to. Not perfectly. Not without mistakes. But consistently. Intentionally. And then begin the work of becoming that person. Start small. Choose one trait to focus on this week, just one. Maybe it's calmness. Practice the breathing exercise. Notice when you feel rushed and deliberately slow down. Or maybe it's clarity. Practice making decisions quickly. Practice explaining your thoughts simply. Whatever you choose, commit to it for 7 days. Just 7 days. And notice what shifts. Because leadership is not given. It is grown. And it starts right here. Right now. Within you. You don't need permission to start. You don't need a title. You don't need anyone's approval. You simply need to decide that you're going to show up differently. That you're going to lead yourself first. That you're going to develop the traits that make others want to follow. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. You don't just become a better leader. You become a better person. More grounded. More clear. More confident. More reliable. And people notice. They feel the difference. They lean in. They listen. They trust. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Through who you are. Through what you project. Through the work you've done within yourself. This is natural leadership. And it begins now. Chapter 2, Developing Inner Leadership, Mindset v Identity. Leadership is not a role you play. It's an identity you build. Before anyone follows you, you must first lead yourself. Before you influence others, you must master your own mind. Before you can project strength, you must cultivate it internally. This chapter is about the foundation. The inner work. The invisible architecture that supports all visible leadership. We're going to explore how your thoughts shape your identity, how your identity shapes your actions, and how your actions create the presence others respond to. This is where real leadership begins. Not in the boardroom. Not in front of a team. But in the quiet moments when no one is watching. When you choose discipline over comfort. When you honor your commitments to yourself. When you regulate your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Let's begin. Identity, who you believe you are. Your identity determines your behavior. Not your goals. Not your intentions. But your identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through, you won't follow through. If you see yourself as someone who lacks confidence, you'll act without confidence. If you see yourself as someone who can't handle pressure, pressure will overwhelm you. But if you see yourself as someone who keeps promises, you will. If you see yourself as someone who stays calm under stress, you will. If you see yourself as a leader, you'll lead. This is not about positive thinking. It's deeper than that. It's about the fundamental beliefs you hold about yourself. And those beliefs are largely unconscious. You've built them over years. Through experiences. Through feedback. Through the patterns you've reinforced. The good news is that identity is not fixed. Just one. Maybe it's calmness. Practice the breathing exercise. Notice when you feel rushed and deliberately slow down. Or maybe it's clarity. Practice making decisions quickly. Practice explaining your thoughts simply. Whatever you choose, commit to it for 7 days. Just 7 days. And notice what shifts. Because leadership is not given. It is grown. And it starts right here. Right now. Within you. You don't need permission to start. You don't need a title. You don't need anyone's approval. You simply need to decide that you're going to show up differently. That you're going to lead yourself first. That you're going to develop the traits that make others want to follow. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. You don't just become a better leader. You become a better person. More grounded. More clear. More confident. More reliable. And people notice. They feel the difference. They lean in. They listen. They trust. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Through who you are. Through what you project. Through the work you've done within yourself. This is natural leadership. And it begins now. Chapter 2, Developing Inner Leadership, Mindset v Identity. Leadership is not a role you play. It's an identity you build. Before anyone follows you, you must first lead yourself. Before you influence others, you must master your own mind. Before you can project strength, you must cultivate it internally. This chapter is about the foundation. The inner work. The invisible architecture that supports all visible leadership. We're going to explore how your thoughts shape your identity, how your identity shapes your actions, and how your actions create the presence others respond to. This is where real leadership begins. Not in the boardroom. Not in front of a team. But in the quiet moments when no one is watching. When you choose discipline over comfort. When you honor your commitments to yourself. When you regulate your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Let's begin. Identity, who you believe you are. Your identity determines your behavior. Not your goals. Not your intentions. But your identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through, you won't follow through. If you see yourself as someone who lacks confidence, you'll act without confidence. If you see yourself as someone who can't handle pressure, pressure will overwhelm you. But if you see yourself as someone who keeps promises, you will. If you see yourself as someone who stays calm under stress, you will. If you see yourself as a leader, you'll lead. This is not about positive thinking. It's deeper than that. It's about the fundamental beliefs you hold about yourself. And those beliefs are largely unconscious. You've built them over years. Through experiences. Through feedback. Through the patterns you've reinforced. The good news is that identity is not fixed. It can be rebuilt. And rebuilding your identity is the most powerful form of personal change available to you. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. Person A says, "I'm trying to quit smoking." Person B says, "I'm not a smoker." Same goal. Different identity. When person A is offered a cigarette, they think, "I can't. I'm trying to quit." It's a struggle. A sacrifice. A battle against desire. When person B is offered a cigarette, they think, "No thanks. I don't smoke." It's not a struggle. It's just who they are. The same principle applies to leadership. If you see yourself as someone trying to become a leader, every leadership action feels like effort. But if you see yourself as a leader, those actions flow naturally from your identity. So the first step in developing inner leadership is examining your identity. Ask yourself, who do I believe I am? Not who do I want to be? Not who I think I should be. But who do I actually believe I am right now? Be honest. Write it down. I am someone who. Complete that sentence 10 times. Don't filter. Just write what comes. Then ask, is this identity serving me? Is this who I want to continue being? If the answer is no, you can change it. Not overnight. But deliberately. By acting in alignment with the identity you want to build. If you want to become someone who leads, start acting like someone who leads. Make decisions. Take responsibility. Show up consistently. And over time, your identity shifts. You become what you practice. Self-discipline, the foundation of self-leadership. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. And leading yourself requires discipline. Not the harsh, punishing kind of discipline. Not the drill sergeant screaming in your face. But the quiet, consistent kind. The kind that helps you do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it. Self-discipline is the ability to act in your long-term interest instead of your short-term comfort. It's choosing the workout over the couch. The difficult conversation over avoidance. The focused work over distraction. It's the gap between intention and action. And the smaller that gap, the stronger your self-leadership. Leaders with low self-discipline are erratic. They start things but don't finish them. They make commitments but don't keep them. They have good intentions but poor follow-through. And people lose trust because they can't rely on consistency. Leaders with high self-discipline are predictable in the best way. They say they'll do something and they do it. They set a standard and they meet it. They create routines and they stick to them. And people trust them because their actions match their words. Self-discipline is trainable. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one area. One commitment. One daily practice. Maybe it's waking up at the same time every day. Maybe it's exercising 3 times per week. Maybe it's spending 30 minutes reading before bed. Whatever it is, make it specific. Make it measurable. And then do it. Not perfectly, but consistently. Miss a day. Start again the next day. Don't let one missed day become 2. Don't let a small slip become a complete collapse. Just return to the practice. Over time, you build evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that you keep commitments. Evidence that you are disciplined. And that evidence becomes your identity. Here's a powerful reframe: self-discipline is not restriction. It's freedom. It's freedom from being controlled by impulse. Freedom from regret. Freedom from the gap between who you want to be and who you actually are. When you have self-discipline, you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, others respect you. It's that simple. Self-respect, the quiet dignity of leadership. Self-respect is how you treat yourself when no one is watching. It's keeping promises to yourself. It's maintaining standards even when it's inconvenient. It's refusing to betray your values for short-term gain. Leaders with low self-respect tolerate behavior from themselves they would never accept from others. They speak to themselves harshly. They neglect their health. They break commitments to themselves repeatedly. And this erodes their internal foundation. Leaders with high self-respect hold themselves accountable. They speak to themselves with kindness but firmness. They honor their needs. They keep their word to themselves first. And here's why this matters for leadership: you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you tolerate disrespect from yourself, you'll tolerate it from others. If you don't value your time, others won't either. If you don't set boundaries with yourself, you won't set them with anyone else. But if you treat yourself with dignity, others will mirror that. They'll sense that you have standards. That you value yourself. And they'll adjust their behavior accordingly. Self-respect also means taking care of yourself. Your body. Your mind. Your energy. Leaders who neglect themselves burn out. They get sick. They lose clarity. They become irritable and reactive. And their leadership suffers. Leaders who prioritize self-care sustain their performance. They sleep enough. They eat well. They exercise. They take breaks. And they lead from a place of fullness instead of depletion. This is not selfish. It's strategic. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot lead effectively if you're running on fumes. So ask yourself, how do I treat myself? Do I speak to myself with respect? Do I keep commitments to myself? Do I prioritize my well-being? If the answer is no, start today. Make one change. Set one boundary. Keep one promise to yourself. And build from there. Emotional regulation, mastering your internal state. Your emotions are information. They tell you what you care about. What threatens you. What excites you. But they are not commands. You don't have to obey them. Emotional regulation is the ability to feel your emotions without being controlled by them. To experience anger without lashing out. To feel fear without freezing. To notice anxiety without spiraling. This skill is essential for leadership. Because your emotional state affects everyone around you. If you're anxious, your team becomes anxious. If you're calm, your team calms down. Your emotions set the tone. Leaders who lack emotional regulation are volatile. They explode when frustrated. They shut down when overwhelmed. They make impulsive decisions based on temporary feelings. And people learn they can't rely on them because they don't know which version they'll get. Leaders who have emotional regulation are steady. They feel emotions fully but respond thoughtfully. They create space between stimulus and response. And people trust them because they're consistent. So how do you develop emotional regulation? First, you must become aware of your emotions. Most people are not. They're on autopilot. They feel something and react immediately without conscious awareness. Practice naming your emotions as they arise. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling excited. This simple act creates distance. It shifts you from being the emotion to observing the emotion. Second, you must learn to sit with discomfort. Most emotional reactivity comes from trying to avoid uncomfortable feelings. We lash out to discharge anger. We distract ourselves to escape anxiety. We people please to avoid conflict. But when you can tolerate discomfort, you gain choice. You can feel angry and still respond calmly. You can feel anxious and still take action. You can feel uncomfortable and still hold your boundary. This is emotional maturity. And it's one of the most powerful leadership capacities you can develop. Third, you must practice pausing. When you feel a strong emotion, don't act immediately. Take 3 deep breaths. Count to 10. Go for a walk. Whatever you need to create space. In that space, ask yourself, what does this situation require from me? Not what do I feel like doing? But what does the situation require? Maybe it requires calmness. Maybe it requires directness. Maybe it requires patience. Whatever it requires, you choose that response consciously. This is not suppression. You're not pretending you don't feel things. You're acknowledging the feeling and choosing your behavior independently of it. Do this consistently and you develop mastery. Emotions move through you but they don't control you. And this creates a profound sense of inner stability that others can feel. Acting from intention, not impulse. There are 2 ways to live. Reactively or intentionally. Reactive living is responding to whatever shows up. Someone sends an email, you respond immediately. Someone asks for something. You say yes without thinking. Something feels urgent, you drop everything. Reactive living feels busy. It feels productive. But it's not intentional. You're being pulled in every direction by external demands. And at the end of the day, you've been busy but you haven't moved toward what matters. Intentional living is different. It's deciding what matters and acting in alignment with that. It's creating instead of reacting. It's leading your day instead of letting your day lead you. Leaders who live reactively are exhausted. They're always putting out fires. Always responding to crises. Always at the mercy of circumstances. And they wonder why they never make progress on what's important. Leaders who live intentionally are focused. They decide their priorities. They protect their time. They say no to distractions. And they make steady progress because they're directing their energy deliberately. So how do you shift from reactive to intentional? Start by defining your priorities. Not everything is important. Not everything deserves your attention. What actually matters? Write it down. Be specific. Then design your day around those priorities. Schedule time for what matters before you schedule anything else. Protect that time. Treat it as non-negotiable. When something comes up that's not aligned with your priorities, pause. Ask, is this actually important? Or is it just urgent? Is this moving me toward my goals? Or is it a distraction? If it's not important, decline it. Politely but firmly. This requires discipline. It requires saying no. It requires disappointing people sometimes. But it also creates focus. And focus creates results. Intention also applies to your responses. Before you react to anything, pause and ask, what's the outcome I want here? How do I need to show up to create that outcome? This simple pause transforms your behavior. Instead of defaulting to old patterns, you choose your response based on what you actually want to create. Over time, this becomes automatic. You shift from being reactive to being intentional. And that shift is one of the most significant markers of mature leadership. Leadership energy, the silent language of presence. Everything we've discussed so far is internal. But here's the truth, your internal state shows up externally. Always. Your thoughts affect your emotions. Your emotions affect your physiology. Your physiology affects your body language. Your body language affects how others perceive you. This is what I call leadership energy. It's the nonverbal communication that happens constantly. The way you walk into a room. The way you hold your body. The way you make eye contact. The tone of your voice. The pace of your speech. People read this energy instantly. Often unconsciously. They don't think, this person has confident body language. They just feel, I trust this person. Leadership energy is powerful because it's authentic. You can fake words. You can rehearse what you say. But you can't fake presence. Your body tells the truth about your internal state. If you're anxious internally, it shows. Your movements become jerky. Your voice speeds up. Your eye contact wavers. Your breathing shallows. If you're confident internally, that shows too. Your movements are smooth. Your voice is steady. Your eye contact is comfortable. Your breathing is deep. So if you want to project leadership energy, you must first develop internal stability. You can't fake it. You have to build it. But there are also practices that help you embody leadership energy more fully. First, your posture. Stand tall. Shoulders back. Chest open. Not in a forced, military way. But in a relaxed, grounded way. This posture signals confidence. It also affects your internal state. Research shows that standing in a confident posture actually increases confidence. Second, your breath. Breathe deeply and slowly. This calms your nervous system. It steadies your voice. It creates a sense of groundedness that others can feel. Third, your pace. Move slowly. Speak slowly. Don't rush. Rushing signals anxiety. Slowness signals control. When you slow down, you create presence. Fourth, your eye contact. Look at people when they speak. Hold their gaze comfortably. Don't stare. Don't look away constantly. Just be present. Eye contact builds connection and trust. Fifth, your voice. Speak from your chest, not your throat. Lower your pitch slightly. This creates authority. Also, pause. Don't fill every silence with words. Pauses create impact. These are small adjustments. But they compound. Together, they create a presence that feels solid. Grounded. Trustworthy. Practice these in low-stakes situations. When you're talking with a friend. When you're ordering coffee. When you're in a meeting. Notice how it feels. Notice how others respond. Over time, this way of being becomes natural. And people start responding to you differently. They listen more closely. They trust you more quickly. They follow more willingly. Because your energy communicates what words cannot. And when your energy aligns with your message, your influence multiplies. Building your inner foundation, daily practices. Everything we've discussed requires practice. You don't read about emotional regulation and suddenly master it. You don't learn about self-discipline and instantly become disciplined. You build these capacities through daily practice. Small actions repeated consistently. Here are specific practices you can start today. Morning routine. Start your day intentionally. Don't reach for your phone immediately. Spend the first 30 minutes on yourself. Meditate. Journal. Exercise. Read. Whatever centers you. This sets the tone for the entire day. Evening reflection. End your day with reflection. What went well today? What could I have done differently? How did I show up? This builds self-awareness and continuous improvement. Breath work: practice controlled breathing for 5 minutes daily. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold for 4. Repeat. This trains your nervous system to return to calm quickly. Physical practice: move your body daily. Not just for fitness, but to release tension. To ground yourself. To connect with your physical presence. Walk. Stretch. Lift. Whatever you enjoy. Mindfulness: practice being present. When you're eating, just eat. When you're listening, just listen. Don't multitask constantly. This builds focus and presence. Commitment tracking: keep a list of promises you make to yourself. Review it weekly. Are you keeping them? If not, why not? This builds self-trust and accountability. Emotional check-ins: 3 times per day, pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Just notice. Don't judge. This builds emotional awareness. These practices seem simple. They are. But simple doesn't mean easy. And it doesn't mean ineffective. Done consistently, these practices transform your inner foundation. They build the stability, the awareness, and the discipline that leadership requires. Start with 1. Just 1. Do it for 30 days. Then add another. Build gradually. But build consistently. The ripple effect: how inner leadership changes everything. When you develop inner leadership, everything changes. Not just your leadership. Everything. Your relationships improve because you're more emotionally regulated. You respond instead of react. You listen instead of defend. Your work improves because you're more disciplined. You focus on what matters. You follow through consistently. Your confidence improves because you keep promises to yourself. You build evidence that you're trustworthy. You respect yourself. And your influence improves because people sense the change. They don't know exactly what's different, but they feel it. You're more solid. More present. More reliable. And they start treating you differently. They listen more closely. They trust you more readily. They follow you more willingly. This is the ripple effect of inner work. It starts within. But it spreads outward, touching every area of your life. And here's the beautiful part: this work is never wasted. Every moment you spend developing inner leadership pays dividends forever. Because once you've built that foundation, no one can take it from you. It's yours. Circumstances can change. Positions can shift. But your inner foundation remains. This is the most valuable investment you can make. Not in skills. Not in credentials. But in becoming the kind of person who naturally leads. Your next step: choose 1 practice. So here's your challenge: choose 1 practice from this chapter. Just 1. Don't try to do everything. That's overwhelming and unsustainable. Pick the one that resonates most. The one that feels most needed right now. Maybe it's building self-discipline by keeping 1 daily commitment. Maybe it's developing emotional regulation by practicing the pause. Maybe it's embodying leadership energy by adjusting your posture and breath. Whatever you choose, commit to it for 30 days. Write it down. Make it specific. Make it measurable. And then do it. Every single day. No exceptions. No excuses. Notice what changes. Notice how you feel. Notice how others respond. And after 30 days, choose another practice. Build gradually. Layer by layer. Practice by practice. This is how you develop inner leadership. Not through dramatic transformation, but through consistent, intentional practice. The work is simple. But it's not easy. It requires showing up when you don't feel like it. It requires choosing intention over impulse. It requires discipline over comfort. But the payoff is immeasurable. Because you're not just becoming a better leader. You're becoming a better version of yourself. And that version will serve you for the rest of your life. Chapter 3: Communication that inspires vs influences. Words are powerful. But they are not the most important part of communication. You've probably experienced this yourself. You've listened to someone speak and felt completely uninspired, even though their words were technically correct. You've also listened to someone else say something simple and felt moved, motivated, compelled to act. The difference wasn't the words. It was everything underneath the words. How they spoke. The energy they carried. The presence they embodied. The intention behind their message. This is what separates ordinary communication from leadership communication. And this is what we're going to explore in this chapter. We're going to break down how natural leaders communicate. Not just what they say, but how they say it. We're going to identify the insecurity-driven behaviors that undermine your influence. And we're going to give you practical tools to communicate with clarity, groundedness, and impact. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand that leadership communication is not about being the most articulate person in the room. It's about being the most present one. Let's begin. The foundation: presence over words. Most people focus on what to say. They rehearse their words. They craft their message. They worry about sounding smart, sounding confident, sounding right. But natural leaders focus on something deeper. They focus on presence. Presence is the quality of being fully here. Fully engaged. Fully attentive. It's the sense that you're not performing, you're not distracted, you're not somewhere else in your mind. You're right here, right now, with the person in front of you. And people feel this. They feel when you're truly present. And they feel when you're not. Think about a conversation you've had with someone who was distracted. Maybe they were checking their phone. Maybe they were looking around the room. Maybe they were clearly thinking about something else. How did that feel? You probably felt unimportant. Unheard. Dismissed. Now think about a conversation with someone who was fully present. They looked at you. They listened completely. They gave you their full attention. How did that feel? You probably felt valued. Heard. Respected. That's the power of presence. It creates connection. It builds trust. It makes people feel seen. And when people feel seen, they're far more receptive to your message. So before we talk about what to say, let's talk about how to be present. First, eliminate distractions. Put your phone away. Close your laptop. Turn away from your screen. Give the person your full attention. This seems obvious, but most people don't do it. Second, ground yourself. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice your body. This brings you into the present moment instead of being lost in thought. Third, listen with your whole body. Not just your ears. Make eye contact. Lean in slightly. Nod when appropriate. Your body language signals that you're engaged. Fourth, quiet your internal dialogue. Don't spend the conversation planning what you're going to say next. Don't judge what the person is saying. Just listen. Fully. Completely. When you do this, something shifts. The conversation deepens. The connection strengthens. And your words carry more weight because they're coming from a place of genuine presence. This is the foundation. Everything else builds on this. Clear communication, saying what you mean. Natural leaders speak clearly. They say what they mean. They don't hide behind vague language. They don't speak in circles. They get to the point. Why does this matter? Because clarity creates trust. When you speak clearly, people know where you stand. They know what you think. They know what you want. And that transparency builds confidence. Unclear communication creates confusion. And confusion creates anxiety. People start filling in the gaps with their own assumptions. They start second-guessing. They start worrying. But clear communication eliminates that. It removes ambiguity. It gives people solid ground to stand on. So how do you communicate clearly? First, know what you want to say before you say it. This sounds simple, but most people start speaking before they've clarified their thought. They talk their way into understanding. And that creates rambling, confusing messages. Take a moment. Even a brief pause. Clarify your thought internally. Then speak. Second, use simple language. Don't use jargon to sound smart. Don't use complex words when simple ones work better. Speak the way you'd explain something to a friend. Complexity doesn't make you sound intelligent. Clarity does. Third, be direct. Don't dance around the point. Don't soften your message so much that it loses meaning. Say what needs to be said. This doesn't mean being harsh. You can be direct and kind. You can be clear and compassionate. But don't sacrifice clarity to avoid discomfort. Let me give you an example. Imagine you need to give feedback to someone on your team. Their work has been inconsistent and it's affecting the project. Unclear version: "Hey, so I wanted to chat about the project. You know, things have been a bit challenging lately, and I'm wondering if maybe we could explore some ways to potentially improve the workflow or something. What do you think?" Clear version: "I need to talk with you about your recent work on the project. The last 3 deliverables were late and incomplete. This is affecting the team's timeline. I need you to meet deadlines and deliver complete work. Can you commit to that moving forward?" Which version is more effective? The clear version. It names the issue. It states the impact. It makes a clear request. There's no confusion about what's expected. This kind of clarity can feel uncomfortable at first. Especially if you're used to softening everything. But it's respectful. Because it treats the other person as capable of hearing the truth. Practice this in low-stakes situations first. When ordering food, be clear about what you want. When making plans, be clear about your availability. When expressing opinions, state them directly. Over time, clarity becomes natural. And people start trusting you more because they always know where they stand with you. Grounded communication: speaking from center. Natural leaders speak from a grounded place. There's a steadiness to their voice. A calmness. A sense that they're not rushed, not anxious, not trying to prove anything. This groundedness comes from internal stability. From knowing who you are. From feeling secure in yourself. And it shows up in how you speak. Grounded communication has several key characteristics. Calm tone: the voice is steady. Not monotone, but not overly expressive either. There's emotional range, but it's controlled. The tone doesn't spike with anxiety or drop with insecurity. Steady pace: the speech is measured. Not rushed. Not painfully slow. But deliberate. Each word is given space. There's no sense of urgency unless the situation truly requires it. Full breath: the voice comes from the chest, not the throat. This creates depth and resonance. It signals confidence. And it happens naturally when you breathe fully. Comfortable pauses: there are natural breaks in speech. Pauses between thoughts. Moments of silence. These aren't awkward. They're intentional. They give weight to what was just said and space for what comes next. Let's contrast this with ungrounded communication. Ungrounded speakers talk fast. They fill every silence. Their voice is tight and comes from their throat. Their tone fluctuates wildly. They seem anxious to get their point across, as if they're afraid they'll lose their audience's attention. This anxiety is contagious. When you speak in an ungrounded way, people feel your nervousness. And it makes them nervous too. They start questioning whether they should trust what you're saying. But when you speak from a grounded place, people relax. They settle in. They trust you. Because your calmness signals that everything is under control. So how do you develop grounded communication? Start with your breath. Before you speak, especially in important moments, take a full breath. Feel it fill your lungs. Let it ground you. Then slow down. Deliberately speak slower than feels natural. Most people speak too fast when they're nervous. Slowing down counteracts that and creates presence. Allow pauses. Don't be afraid of silence. A pause before you speak signals thoughtfulness. A pause after you speak gives your words room to land. Lower your pitch slightly. Not dramatically, but enough that your voice has more resonance. This comes naturally when you breathe deeply and speak from your chest. Practice this in everyday conversations. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. Take a breath. Then respond. Notice how it feels. Notice how others respond. Over time, grounded communication becomes your default. And your influence grows because people feel safe in your presence. Intentional communication, every word has purpose. Natural leaders don't waste words. They speak intentionally. Every sentence serves a purpose. There's no filler. No rambling. No unnecessary elaboration. This doesn't mean they're cold or robotic. It means they're efficient. They respect their own time and others' time by communicating with precision. Intentional communication requires you to know why you're speaking. What's the purpose of this message? What do you want the listener to understand or do? Without clarity of purpose, communication becomes noise. You talk but nothing is accomplished. You fill time but don't create value. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're leading a team meeting. Unintentional approach, so, hey everyone, thanks for coming. I know we're all super busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I was thinking we should probably talk about the project, just to kind of check in and see where everyone's at. There's been a lot going on, and I thought it might be good to just touch base and make sure we're all on the same page or whatever. So, yeah, does anyone have updates or thoughts or anything? Intentional approach, thank you for being here. This meeting has one purpose: align on project status and identify any blockers. Let's go around the table. Each person share your progress and any obstacles you're facing. We have 30 minutes. Let's begin. The intentional approach is clear. It states the purpose. It sets expectations. It creates structure. And it respects everyone's time. The unintentional approach is vague. It meanders. It leaves people wondering what the point is. And it wastes time. Intentional communication requires discipline. It requires you to think before you speak. To cut unnecessary words. To focus on impact rather than filling space. Here's a practice. Before any important communication, ask yourself 3 questions. What's my purpose? What's the core message? What action do I want to result from this? Answer these questions. Then communicate only what's necessary to achieve that purpose. This applies to emails too. Most emails are too long. They bury the important information in paragraphs of context. But intentional emails are brief. They state the purpose in the first sentence. They provide only necessary context. They end with a clear request or next step. Practice this consistently and your communication becomes powerful. People start paying more attention because they know you don't waste words. When you speak, it matters. Insecurity-driven communication, what to avoid. Now let's talk about what undermines your communication. The behaviors that signal insecurity and erode your influence. These behaviors are common. Most people do them without realizing it. But once you become aware of them, you can eliminate them. And your communication instantly becomes more powerful. Over-explaining. Over-explaining is giving more context, more justification, more reasoning than necessary. It's the inability to let your message stand on its own. Why do people over-explain? Usually because they're afraid their message won't be accepted. So they pile on reasons. They justify. They elaborate, hoping that if they explain enough, the person will agree. But over-explaining has the opposite effect. It makes you sound uncertain. It makes you sound like you don't believe your own message. And it gives the listener more opportunities to find holes in your reasoning. Confident communication is concise. You state your position. You provide necessary context. And then you stop. You trust that your message is sufficient. Example of over-explaining: I think we should move forward with option A. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I really feel like it makes the most sense because of X and Y and Z. And I know option B has some benefits too, but when you really look at all the factors and consider everything, I just think A is better. Does that make sense? I don't know, what do you think? Example of clear communication: I recommend option A. Here's why: it meets our primary objectives and fits our timeline. I'm confident this is the right choice. Questions? The second version is stronger. It's clear. It's confident. It invites discussion without apologizing for the recommendation. Practice this: state your position. Provide one or two supporting reasons. Then stop. Don't keep talking. Let your message breathe. Excessive apologizing. Apologizing is appropriate when you've made a mistake or caused harm. But many people apologize constantly for things that don't require apology. Sorry to bother you, but... Sorry, can I ask a question? Sorry, I just wanted to check in. These apologies are habitual. They're not acknowledging wrongdoing. They're expressing discomfort with taking up space, with having needs, with asserting yourself. And they undermine your presence. Every unnecessary apology signals that you don't believe you have a right to be here, to speak, to make requests. Leaders don't apologize for existing. They don't apologize for doing their job. They don't apologize for having expectations. Instead of, sorry to interrupt, but can we talk about the deadline? Say, can we talk about the deadline? Instead of, sorry if this is a dumb question, but say, I have a question. Instead of, sorry for the long email, just write a shorter email. Remove apologetic language from your communication. Not to be rude, but to claim your space. You have a right to speak. To make requests. To have needs. You don't need to apologize for that. The exception, of course, is genuine apology. When you've made a mistake, own it fully. Apologize clearly. Make amends. But don't dilute real apologies by apologizing for everything else. Talking too fast. Fast speech signals anxiety. It signals that you're nervous, rushed, or afraid of losing attention. When you talk fast, people struggle to follow. They miss information. They feel overwhelmed. And they disengage. Slow speech signals confidence. It signals that you trust people will listen. That you're not afraid of taking up time. That you believe your message is worth hearing. The solution is simple: slow down. Deliberately speak at a pace that feels almost too slow. It probably isn't. It's probably just right. Also, breathe between sentences. Pause between thoughts. Give your words room. This is uncomfortable at first. Silence feels awkward. You'll want to fill it. Resist that urge. Let the silence exist. It creates impact. Practice this in low-stakes situations. When you're telling a story to friends. When you're explaining something to a colleague. Slow down. Pause. Notice how it feels. Over time, this becomes natural. And your communication becomes far more powerful because people can actually absorb what you're saying. Hedging language. Hedging is using words that soften or qualify your statements. Words like kind of, sort of, maybe, I think, probably. I kind of think we should maybe consider possibly looking at this approach. This language makes you sound uncertain. Even if you're sure about your position, hedging makes it seem like you're not. Compare that to, we should pursue this approach. The second version is clear, decisive, strong. Now, there are times when uncertainty is appropriate. When you genuinely don't know something, say so. I'm not sure about this, but here's my current thinking. But most hedging isn't honest uncertainty. It's fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of commitment. Leaders commit to their positions. They state them clearly. And if they're wrong, they adjust. But they don't hide behind hedging language. Practice removing these words from your speech. It feels vulnerable at first. But it makes your communication dramatically more powerful. Listening to understand, the most powerful tool. Here's something most people miss about leadership communication: listening is more important than speaking. Most people listen to respond. They wait for their turn to talk. They're formulating their reply while the other person is still speaking. They're not actually hearing what's being said. Leaders listen to understand. They focus completely on the other person. They seek to grasp not just the words, but the meaning underneath. The emotion. The need. The concern. This kind of listening is rare. And it's incredibly powerful. When someone feels truly heard, they relax. They open up. They trust you. And they become far more receptive to your influence. So how do you listen to understand? First, stop talking. This sounds obvious, but many people interrupt constantly. Let the person finish. Completely. Don't jump in with your thoughts the moment they pause. Second, focus entirely on them. Not on your response. Not on your judgment. Just on understanding what they're saying. Third, reflect back what you heard. So what I'm hearing is. This serves two purposes. It confirms you understood correctly. And it shows the person that you were actually listening. Fourth, ask clarifying questions. Can you say more about that? What did you mean by? Help me understand. These questions show genuine interest. They invite deeper sharing. And they give you better information. Fifth, notice what's not being said. Sometimes the most important information is in the subtext. The emotion underneath the words. The hesitation. The avoidance of a topic. Pay attention to tone. To body language. To what's conspicuously absent from the conversation. When you listen this deeply, you gain insight others miss. You understand the real issue, not just the surface one. And you can respond far more effectively. Also, listening builds respect. People don't follow leaders who don't listen to them. But they deeply respect leaders who do. So in your next conversation, practice this. Give the person your complete attention. Listen not just to their words, but to their meaning. Reflect back what you heard. Ask questions. Notice how the conversation shifts. Notice how the connection deepens. This is leadership communication at its finest. Asking powerful questions, guiding without controlling. Leaders don't just give answers. They ask questions. Questions that make people think. Questions that create insight. Questions that empower others to find their own solutions. Powerful questions do several things. They show respect. You're not assuming you have all the answers. You're inviting input. They create ownership. When people arrive at their own conclusions, they're more committed to them. They develop thinking. Good questions stretch people's minds. They push people to consider new perspectives. They reveal information. Sometimes you learn more from asking questions than from making statements. So what makes a question powerful? First, it's open-ended. It can't be answered with yes or no. It requires thought. Instead of, "Do you think this will work?" ask, "What concerns do you have about this approach?" Instead of, "Are you ready to move forward?" ask, "What do you need to feel confident moving forward?" Second, it's focused on understanding or possibility, not judgment. Instead of, "Why didn't you finish this?" ask, "What got in the way of completing this?" Instead of, "Why would you do that?" ask, "What were you hoping to achieve?" Third, it invites reflection. What's the real challenge here? What would success look like? If you could approach this differently, what would you do? What's one thing you learned from this? These questions create space for thinking. They shift people from reactive mode to reflective mode. And in that space, insight emerges. Practice asking more questions. Especially when your instinct is to give answers. Pause. Ask a question instead. See what happens. You'll be surprised how often people already know the answer. They just needed someone to create space for them to access it. Holding space, the art of presence in conversation. Holding space is the ability to be fully present with someone without needing to fix, advise, or change anything. It's creating a container where the other person can think, feel, and express themselves freely. This is one of the most powerful forms of leadership communication. Because most people don't experience this. Most conversations are transactional. Surface level. Rushed. But when someone holds space for you, it's transformative. You feel safe. You feel valued. You feel heard in a way that's rare. So how do you hold space? First, be present. Eliminate distractions. Give the person your full attention. Let everything else fall away. Second, don't rush to solutions. When someone shares a problem, resist the urge to immediately offer advice. Just listen. Let them talk it through. Third, tolerate emotion. If someone gets emotional, don't try to make them feel better immediately. Don't say, "Don't worry," or, "It's not that bad." Just be with them. Let them feel what they feel. Fourth, trust the process. You don't need to have answers. You don't need to fix anything. Your presence alone is valuable. Fifth, follow their pace. Don't push. Don't pull. Let them lead. Let them share what they're ready to share. Holding space requires confidence. Because you're not doing anything visible. You're not solving. You're not advising. You're just being present. And that can feel uncomfortable. But it's profoundly impactful. After a conversation where someone truly held space for you, you feel different. Lighter. Clearer. More capable. Practice this. The next time someone comes to you with a problem, don't immediately solve it. Ask, "Do you want advice or do you just need to talk?" If they say they just need to talk, listen. Hold space. Be present. Notice what happens. Notice how they respond. Notice how the relationship deepens. This is leadership communication at its highest level. Practical integration, bringing it all together. Everything we've discussed in this chapter works together. Presence. Clarity. Groundedness. Intentionality. Listening. Questioning. Holding space. None of these are separate skills. They're all expressions of the same thing, centered, authentic communication. When you're truly present, clarity emerges naturally. When you're grounded, intentionality follows. When you listen deeply, powerful questions arise. So don't try to master each skill individually. Instead, focus on the foundation, presence. Be here. Be fully engaged. Be authentic. Everything else flows from that. Here's your practice for the next week. Choose one conversation each day where you practice complete presence. It doesn't have to be a formal or important conversation. Just one conversation where you eliminate all distractions and give the person your full attention. In that conversation, practice everything we've discussed. Speak clearly. Speak slowly. Listen to understand. Ask questions. Hold space. Then reflect. What did you notice? How did the person respond? What felt different? Do this consistently and you'll transform your communication. Not through technique, but through presence. And presence is what creates true influence. Because people don't follow the most articulate speaker. They follow the person who makes them feel heard, valued, and understood. Be that person. And watch how your leadership naturally expands. Chapter 4, Decision-Making, Responsibility v. Trust. Leadership does not exist in ideas alone. It lives in decisions. Every choice you make shapes the path ahead. Every action you take sends a message. And every message builds trust, or breaks it. This chapter explores the foundation of leadership through 3 principles: decision-making, responsibility, and trust. These are not separate skills. They are connected. One supports the other. Together, they form the core of what it means to lead. The weight of decision-making. Decisions define leaders. Not titles. Not positions. Not words. It is the ability to choose and move forward that separates those who lead from those who wait. Many people struggle with decisions. They delay. They avoid. They overthink. This happens because decisions carry weight. Every choice opens one door and closes another. Every decision has consequences. And many fear making the wrong choice. But leadership requires action. You cannot lead without deciding. Even choosing not to decide is a decision. And it is often the most damaging one. Let's be clear. You will make mistakes. You will choose poorly at times. No one makes perfect decisions. But avoiding decisions altogether is worse than making imperfect ones. Indecision creates confusion. It weakens confidence. It leaves people waiting, uncertain, and anxious. Think about it. When a group faces uncertainty, what do they need? They need direction. They need someone to step forward and say, "We go this way." That person does not need to be right every time. They need to be clear. They need to commit. Consider a simple example. A team is working on a project. 2 paths are possible. Both have merit. Both have risks. The team debates for hours. No one decides. Time passes. Energy fades. Frustration builds. Now imagine a different scenario. Someone steps forward. They listen. They assess. Then they say, "We take path A. Here's why." The debate ends. The team moves. Even if path A proves difficult, the team respects the decision. Why? Because it gave them direction. This is the power of decision-making. It removes paralysis. It creates momentum. It builds confidence. Clarity in choice. Good decisions begin with clarity. Before you choose, you must understand what you are choosing. This sounds simple. It is not. Many decisions fail because the problem is unclear. People rush to solutions without defining the issue. They react instead of respond. This leads to poor choices. Take time to clarify. Ask yourself, what is the real problem here? What am I actually trying to solve? What matters most in this situation? Let's use an example. Your team is behind schedule. You could demand longer hours. You could add more people. You could cut features. Each option has appeal. But what is the root issue? Is it time management? Is it unclear priorities? Is it lack of resources? Is it miscommunication? Until you know the problem, you cannot choose wisely. Clarity comes first. Decision follows. Once you understand the issue, consider your options. You do not need every possible choice. You need the viable ones. 2 or 3 options are often enough. Too many choices create confusion. Too few limit perspective. For each option, consider the outcome. What happens if you choose this path? What are the risks? What are the benefits? Who is affected? What does success look like? This process does not take hours. Sometimes it takes minutes. The key is intention. You pause. You think. You clarify. Then you choose. The speed of decision-making. Some decisions require time. Others require speed. Knowing the difference is crucial. Complex decisions benefit from reflection. Strategic choices, long-term commitments, major changes, these deserve careful thought. Gather information. Consult others. Sleep on it. Allow your mind to process. But many decisions do not require this depth. Small choices, routine matters, clear situations, these need speed. Delaying them wastes time and energy. Here is a useful principle. Decide at the right level. Match the weight of the decision to the time you invest. Do not spend 3 days choosing what to have for lunch. Do not spend 3 minutes choosing your career path. Leaders often struggle with this balance. Some overthink small matters. Others rush big decisions. Both are errors. Learn to sense the weight of a decision. Ask, what is at stake here? Is this reversible? Can I adjust later? If the answer is yes, decide quickly. If the answer is no, take your time. There is another element to consider, timing. Some decisions have windows. The right choice made too late becomes the wrong choice. Opportunity passes. Circumstances change. The moment closes. Imagine a leader during a crisis. Information is incomplete. Pressure is high. Waiting for perfect clarity is impossible. But the team needs direction now. The leader must decide with what they have. They assess quickly. They choose. They act. This is not recklessness. This is leadership under pressure. Speed and clarity are not opposites. They work together. When your thinking is clear, your decisions come faster. When you trust your process, you move with confidence. Owning the outcome. Making decisions is one skill. Owning them is another. This is where many people falter. They decide, then distance themselves from the result. They blame circumstances. They point to others. They explain why it was not their fault. This destroys leadership. People lose trust in leaders who avoid responsibility. They respect leaders who own their choices, especially when those choices do not work out. Owning the outcome means accepting full responsibility for your decisions. Not partial. Not conditional. Full. When the decision succeeds, you share the credit. When it fails, you take the blame. This is not about punishment. It is about integrity. It is about showing that you stand behind your choices. Let's consider 2 scenarios. In the first, a leader makes a decision that fails. The project misses its deadline. The leader gathers the team and says, "This was my call. I misjudged the timeline. That's on me. Here's what I've learned. Here's how we adjust moving forward." In the second scenario, the same failure occurs. The leader says, "The team didn't execute properly. The circumstances changed. We didn't have enough resources. It's unfortunate." Which leader would you trust? Which leader would you follow into the next challenge? The first leader owns the outcome. They do not hide. They do not deflect. They acknowledge the failure. They take responsibility. They move forward with humility and purpose. The second leader avoids ownership. They protect their image at the expense of trust. People notice this. They remember it. And it weakens every future decision that leader makes. Owning the outcome also applies to success. When things go well, acknowledge the team. Share the victory. Highlight contributions. Good leaders deflect praise downward and accept criticism upward. This builds loyalty. It shows that you value others. It demonstrates that leadership is not about personal glory. Think about a time someone took credit for your work. How did that feel? Now think about a time someone acknowledged your contribution publicly. Which leader earned your respect? Ownership creates respect. It builds character. It shows that you are not just making decisions to look good. You are making them because you believe in them. And you are willing to stand by them, whatever comes. The foundation of trust. Trust is the currency of leadership. Without it, you have no real influence. People may follow your title, but they will not follow you. They will comply, but they will not commit. Trust is not given freely. It is earned. And it is earned slowly, through consistent behavior over time. There are 3 pillars of trust: reliability, honesty, and accountability. Each one matters. Together, they create an environment where people feel safe to follow, to contribute, to take risks. Let's explore each pillar. Reliability means you do what you say you will do. You follow through. You show up. You deliver. This sounds basic, but many people fail here. They make promises lightly. They overcommit. They forget. They disappoint. Reliability is built through small actions. Arriving on time. Meeting deadlines. Returning calls. Keeping your word. These moments seem minor. But they accumulate. Over time, people learn whether they can count on you. Imagine a colleague who always says yes but rarely delivers. You stop asking them for help. You stop trusting their commitments. Now imagine someone who rarely makes promises, but when they do, they always follow through. You trust them completely. That is reliability. As a leader, your reliability affects everyone around you. When you are reliable, people relax. They focus on their work instead of worrying about whether you will support them. When you are unreliable, they become cautious. They hesitate. They protect themselves. Honesty means telling the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. It means admitting mistakes. It means sharing bad news. It means being transparent about challenges. Many leaders struggle with honesty because they fear looking weak. They hide problems. They sugarcoat realities. They tell people what they want to hear instead of what they need to know. This approach always backfires. People sense dishonesty. They notice when information does not match reality. And once they suspect a leader is not being truthful, trust collapses. Honesty does not mean being harsh or blunt. You can be honest and kind. You can deliver difficult truths with care. The key is authenticity. People need to know that what you say is real. Consider a leader facing company layoffs. They could hide the situation until the last moment. Or they could be honest: we are facing financial difficulties. I want to be transparent with you about what we are considering and how we are working to address this. The second approach is harder. It creates discomfort. But it preserves trust. Honesty also means being honest about what you do not know. Many leaders feel pressure to have all the answers. They fake certainty. They make up responses. This is a mistake. Saying, "I don't know, but I will find out," is far more trustworthy than pretending to know. Accountability means answering for your actions. It means accepting consequences. It means being available for questions, feedback, and criticism. Accountable leaders do not hide behind closed doors. They do not make excuses. They do not shift blame. They stand present and responsible. Accountability creates safety. When people know their leader is accountable, they feel secure. They know that if something goes wrong, the leader will not abandon them. They know the leader will face the situation directly. Think about accountability in practical terms. When someone on your team makes a mistake, what do you do? Do you throw them under the bus? Do you protect yourself first? Or do you step forward and address the situation together? Accountable leaders create a culture where mistakes are acknowledged, learned from, and moved beyond. This encourages growth. It reduces fear. It allows people to take initiative without paralyzing anxiety. Accountability also means being open to feedback. No leader is perfect. People see your blind spots. They notice your mistakes. When you welcome their input, you show humility. You show that you value truth over ego. Ask for feedback regularly. Create space for honest conversation. When someone points out an error, thank them. When they challenge your decision, listen. You do not have to agree with every critique. But you do have to be open to it. Why people follow? People do not follow leaders because of authority. They follow because of how the leader makes them feel. This is the emotional foundation of leadership. There are 3 feelings that drive followership: safety, support, and guidance. Safety means people trust they will not be harmed. Not physically, of course, but emotionally and professionally. They trust that if they speak up, they will not be attacked. If they make a mistake, they will not be destroyed. If they take a risk, they will be supported. Leaders create safety through consistency. When your reactions are predictable, people relax. They know what to expect. They are not walking on eggshells. This does not mean you are always pleasant. It means you are fair. You are measured. You do not explode or punish arbitrarily. Safety also comes from your values. When people know what you stand for, they know where they stand with you. They understand the rules of engagement. This clarity reduces anxiety. Think about a time you worked for someone unpredictable. Someone who praised you one day and criticized you the next for the same behavior. How did that feel? Now think about working for someone consistent. Someone whose standards were clear and fair. The difference is enormous. Support means people know you are on their side. You want them to succeed. You will help them grow. You will provide resources, guidance, and encouragement. Supportive leaders invest in their people. They coach. They mentor. They remove obstacles. They celebrate wins. They help during struggles. Support is not the same as being soft. You can have high standards and be supportive. In fact, the best support often comes from leaders who push you to be better while also believing in you. Imagine a coach. A great coach demands excellence. They point out weaknesses. They push you beyond comfort. But you know they believe in you. You know they want you to succeed. That belief makes the challenge bearable. It makes you willing to try harder. Leaders provide support through presence. They check in. They ask questions. They listen. They notice when someone is struggling. Small gestures, acknowledging effort, offering help, saying thank you, build a supportive environment. Guidance means people trust your direction. They believe you know where you are going. They feel confident following your lead. Guidance comes from clarity. When you communicate your vision clearly, people understand the destination. When you explain your decisions, people understand the path. When you stay focused, people trust the journey. Leaders provide guidance not by knowing everything, but by staying oriented. You keep the goal visible. You point out progress. You adjust when needed. You remain steady when others panic. Think of guidance like a compass. It does not eliminate uncertainty. It does not make the terrain easier. But it gives direction. It helps people navigate. It reduces the fear of being lost. People follow leaders who provide these 3 things. They stay with leaders who consistently deliver safety, support, and guidance. This is not about charisma or charm. It is about creating an environment where people can do their best work without fear. Building a decision-making practice. Decision-making improves with practice. It is a skill, not a trait. You can develop it deliberately. Start small. Make more decisions in your daily life. Practice choosing without overthinking. Order your meal quickly. Pick your route without debate. Choose your clothes and move on. These micro-decisions build your decision-making muscle. Notice your patterns. Do you avoid certain types of decisions? Do you overthink? Do you rush? Awareness is the first step toward improvement. Create a simple process. When faced with a decision, follow these steps. 1. Define the problem clearly. Write it down if needed. 2. Identify your options. List 2 or 3 realistic choices. 3. Consider the outcomes. Think through what each choice leads to. 4. Decide. Commit to one option. 5. Act. Implement your decision. 6. Own the result. Acknowledge what happens and learn from it. This process takes minutes for small decisions, hours for large ones. But it provides structure. It prevents paralysis. It builds confidence. Review your decisions. Once a week, reflect on the choices you made. What went well? What would you do differently? What did you learn? This reflection solidifies the skill. Seek feedback. Ask people you trust how they experience your decision-making. Are you too slow? Too quick? Do you explain your reasoning? Do you involve others appropriately? Their perspective helps you adjust. The long game of trust. Trust is not built overnight. It accumulates through repeated interactions. Every decision you make, every promise you keep, every mistake you own, these moments add up. Think of trust like a bank account. Deposits are made through reliability, honesty, and accountability. Withdrawals happen through broken promises, dishonesty, and blame shifting. The balance matters. Early in leadership, your balance is low. People do not know you yet. They are cautious. Every action is noticed. Every decision is weighed. This is normal. Do not be discouraged. Stay consistent. Keep your promises. Be honest. Own your mistakes. Over time, the balance grows. People start to trust you by default. They give you the benefit of the doubt. They follow more easily. But trust is fragile. One major breach can wipe out years of deposits. This is why integrity matters so deeply. You cannot afford to compromise it. Imagine a leader who has built trust over 5 years. The team respects them. They follow willingly. Then one day, that leader lies to protect themselves. Maybe they blame someone else for their mistake. Maybe they hide information to avoid looking bad. That single act destroys the trust built over years. Rebuilding trust after a breach is possible, but it is slow and painful. It requires genuine remorse, changed behavior, and time. Much time. It is far easier to protect trust than to rebuild it. So guard your integrity carefully. When tempted to take a shortcut, to shade the truth, to avoid responsibility, stop. Remember that your leadership depends on trust. And trust depends on integrity. The connection between decision and trust. Now we see how these elements connect. Decisions reveal character. Owning outcomes builds respect. Consistency creates trust. And trust enables leadership. When you make clear decisions, people feel guided. When you own the results, people feel safe. When you do this consistently, people trust you. And when people trust you, they follow. This is not manipulation. This is not technique. This is the natural result of leading with integrity. Think of leadership as a cycle. You decide. You act. You own the outcome. People notice. Trust builds. Your influence grows. You make better decisions because people support you. The cycle continues. Break the cycle at any point, avoid decisions. Deflect responsibility, act inconsistently, and leadership weakens. People withdraw. Trust erodes. Influence fades. But maintain the cycle, and leadership strengthens naturally. You do not need to force it. You do not need to demand respect. It comes as a consequence of your behavior. Practical steps forward. As you move forward, focus on these practices. Make one clear decision today. Do not wait for perfect information. Assess what you know. Choose. Act. Own one outcome fully. Whether success or failure, acknowledge your role. Speak it out loud to someone. Keep one promise. Even a small one. Show reliability in action. Be honest in one difficult conversation. Share a truth you have been avoiding. Do it with care, but do it. Ask for one piece of feedback. Invite someone to tell you how you can improve. Listen without defending. These are not grand gestures. They are simple actions. But done consistently, they transform your leadership. Remember, leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being present, responsible, and trustworthy. It is about making decisions and owning them. It is about creating an environment where people feel safe, supported, and guided. You do not need to be the smartest person in the room. You do not need to have all the answers. You need to be someone people can trust. Someone who decides. Someone who takes responsibility. Someone who shows up consistently. This is within your reach. It starts with the next decision you make. The next outcome you own. The next promise you keep. Leadership is built one choice at a time. One honest conversation at a time. One kept promise at a time. These moments accumulate. They create trust. They establish influence. They make you someone worth following. The journey is long. The work is daily. But the impact is profound. When you lead with clarity, responsibility, and integrity, you change not only your own life but the lives of everyone you touch. So step forward. Make your decision. Own your outcome. Build your trust. This is how leaders are made. Chapter 5, Becoming a leader others follow naturally. There is a particular kind of leadership that requires no announcement. No title. No formal authority. It simply exists. People gravitate toward it naturally. They follow without being asked. They trust without needing proof. This is the leadership we have been building toward. Everything you have learned so far, presence, communication, emotional intelligence, decision-making, responsibility, trust, comes together here. This chapter shows you how these elements combine to create natural leadership. The kind that transforms not just your work, but your relationships, your identity, and your entire way of being in the world. Natural leadership is not forced. It is not performed. It emerges from who you are and how you show up. It spreads through example, standards, energy, and consistency. And once activated, it changes everything around you. The paradox of leading without force. Here is something many people misunderstand about leadership: true influence cannot be demanded. The moment you force people to follow, you have lost. What remains is compliance, not commitment. Obedience, not loyalty. Real leadership happens when people choose to follow. When they want to be near you. When they seek your perspective. When they naturally align with your direction. This is the paradox. The less you try to control, the more influence you have. The less you demand attention, the more people give it to you. The less you insist on being followed, the more naturally people fall into step beside you. Why does this happen? Because forced leadership triggers resistance. Human beings instinctively push back against coercion. Even when we comply outwardly, we resist internally. We look for exits. We wait for the pressure to lift. But natural leadership creates pull, not push. It attracts rather than compels. People follow because something in them wants to. Maybe they admire your clarity. Maybe they feel safe in your presence. Maybe they trust your judgment. Whatever the reason, the choice is theirs. And that makes all the difference. Think about someone you have followed willingly in your life. Not because you had to, but because you wanted to. Maybe a teacher, a mentor, a colleague, a friend. What made you follow them? It was not their demands. It was something about how they showed up. Something about their energy, their consistency, their way of being. This is what you are cultivating. Not the ability to command, but the ability to inspire genuine followership. This takes time. It requires patience. But it creates something far more powerful than any forced authority ever could. Leading through example. Example is the oldest and most powerful teaching method. Words can inspire, but actions prove. People watch what you do far more carefully than they listen to what you say. When your behavior matches your words, you create integrity. When your actions demonstrate the standards you speak about, you earn respect. When you embody the qualities you ask of others, you give them permission to do the same. Let's be specific. If you want your team to be punctual, you must be punctual. If you want them to be calm under pressure, you must demonstrate calm. If you want them to take responsibility, you must model ownership. If you want them to communicate clearly, you must communicate clearly first. This sounds simple. It is not. Most people have blind spots about their own behavior. They notice what others do but overlook their own contradictions. They ask for excellence while delivering mediocrity. They demand honesty while shading truth. They expect accountability while making excuses. People notice these contradictions immediately. And when they see them, your words lose power. Your influence weakens. Trust erodes. But when you lead through consistent example, something remarkable happens. People begin to mirror you. Not because you told them to. Because you showed them how. Consider a simple scenario. You enter a tense meeting. The energy is anxious. People are defensive. Arguments are brewing. You could try to control the situation with authority. Or you could embody calm. You speak slowly. You listen fully. You acknowledge emotions without reacting to them. You ask thoughtful questions. You stay present. What happens? The room begins to shift. People match your energy. The tension eases. Not because you demanded it. Because you demonstrated it. This is leading through example. Your state influences the system. Your behavior sets the standard. Your consistency creates the culture. Think about the qualities you want in those around you. Now ask yourself, do I embody these qualities? Am I living the standard I expect? If the answer is no, start there. You cannot lead others somewhere you have not gone yourself. You cannot inspire qualities you do not demonstrate. Example is not optional in natural leadership. It is the foundation. Setting standards without apology. Natural leaders have clear standards. They know what they stand for. They know what they will accept and what they will not. And they hold these standards without apology or explanation. This is not about being rigid or controlling. It is about having a clear sense of what matters. When you know your standards, you create boundaries. These boundaries protect the quality of your work, your relationships, and your environment. Many people fear setting standards. They worry about seeming demanding or difficult. They want to be liked. So they compromise. They accept less than they value. They tolerate behavior that undermines their work. They lower their expectations to avoid conflict. This approach destroys leadership. When you have no standards, you have no direction. When you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing. When you compromise your values to avoid discomfort, you lose respect, both from others and from yourself. Standards do not mean perfection. They mean clarity. They mean knowing what you will uphold and having the courage to uphold it. Let's use an example. You are working with a team. Someone consistently misses deadlines without communication. This affects everyone. You have two choices. You can ignore it to keep the peace. Or you can address it clearly and directly. If you ignore it, you send a message: standards do not matter here. Others notice. They begin to question their own effort. Why work hard if others do not? Why care if no one else does? But if you address it calmly and directly, you send a different message: we have standards here. Everyone is accountable. This is not personal. This is about the work we do together. The person may resist. They may react defensively. That is their choice. Your job is not to control their reaction. Your job is to hold the standard. Others are watching. They will see your consistency. They will respect your clarity. And they will rise to meet the standard you set. Standards also apply to yourself. In fact, the standards you set for yourself are the most important ones. They determine your credibility. When people see you holding yourself to high standards, they trust you to hold them to standards too. Do not apologize for having standards. Do not justify them endlessly. State them clearly. Uphold them consistently. Let your behavior speak. Over time, people will align or move on. Either outcome strengthens your leadership. Energy is contagious. Your emotional state spreads. This is not metaphor. It is biology. Human beings are wired to attune to each other emotionally. We mirror expressions. We match energy levels. We sync up unconsciously. This means your energy as a leader affects everyone around you. If you bring anxiety, you create anxiety. If you bring chaos, you spread chaos. If you bring calm confidence, you create calm confidence. Think about walking into a room where someone is genuinely happy. Their smile is real. Their energy is bright. What happens to you? You feel lighter. You smile back. Their state influences yours. Now think about entering a space where someone is angry or stressed. You feel it immediately. Your body tenses. Your guard goes up. Their state affects you before a single word is spoken. This is emotional contagion. And as a leader, you are the primary source. Your energy sets the tone. Your emotional state creates the atmosphere. This is a profound responsibility. You cannot fake this. People sense authenticity. They know when energy is genuine and when it is performed. You cannot put on a mask of calm while feeling frantic inside. The incongruence shows. It creates distrust. So the work happens internally first. Before you enter a meeting, check your state. Are you present? Are you centered? If not, take a moment. Breathe. Ground yourself. Adjust your energy before you engage. This is not about suppressing emotions. It is about choosing which emotions you lead with. You can feel stressed and still project calm. You can feel uncertain and still demonstrate confidence. The feelings exist, but you do not let them control your presence. Let's consider a practical example. Your project is behind schedule. The pressure is mounting. You are worried. You have every right to be. But when you meet with your team, what energy do you bring? If you bring panic, the team panics. Productivity drops. Mistakes increase. People protect themselves rather than solve problems. But if you bring focused calm, something different happens. You acknowledge the challenge. You express confidence in the team's ability. You break the problem into steps. You stay solution-oriented. Your energy says, "We have this. Let's move forward together." The team mirrors this. They stay focused. They collaborate. They solve problems instead of spiraling into worry. Your energy creates the container for the work. Make sure it is a container that supports performance, not one that induces fear. Consistency creates trust, trust creates followership. We have discussed trust before. But here we see its ultimate purpose. Trust is what allows people to follow naturally. Without trust, people hesitate. They question. They protect themselves. With trust, they move freely. They contribute openly. They follow willingly. And trust comes from consistency. Not perfection. Consistency. People do not need you to be flawless. They need you to be reliable. They need to know that who you are today is who you will be tomorrow. That your values remain steady. That your behavior is predictable in the best sense. Consistency shows up in small ways. You say good morning every day. You keep your promises. You respond to messages. You show up on time. You handle pressure the same way each time. You treat people with the same respect regardless of mood or circumstance. These moments seem trivial. They are not. They are deposits in the trust account. Each one adds up. Over time, people learn they can count on you. Not because you told them they can. Because you have shown them, repeatedly, that they can. Inconsistency destroys this. When your mood determines your behavior, people become cautious. When your standards change based on convenience, people lose faith. When you are supportive one day and dismissive the next, people withdraw. Think about someone in your life who is inconsistent. How do you feel around them? You are probably cautious. You watch for signs. You try to gauge their mood before you engage. You hold back because you do not know which version of them you will encounter. Now think about someone who is deeply consistent. You relax around them. You know what to expect. You trust that they will be themselves, regardless of circumstances. This trust allows you to be yourself too. This is what consistency creates. A space where people can show up fully. Where they do not have to manage your emotions. Where they can focus on the work, the relationship, the shared purpose. As a leader, your consistency becomes the bedrock. It is the stable ground beneath the team. It allows others to take risks, to be creative, to bring their best. Because they know you will be steady regardless of the outcome. Build this through daily practice. Be the person you were yesterday. Uphold the values you named last week. Treat people tomorrow the way you treated them today. This is not boring. This is powerful. This is how natural leadership emerges. How influence spreads. Influence is not linear. It does not move in straight lines from leader to follower. It spreads like ripples in water. It multiplies through networks. It compounds over time. When you lead naturally, you influence people directly. But those people then influence others. Your calm becomes their calm. Your clarity becomes their clarity. Your standards become their standards. And they carry these qualities into their own spheres of influence. This is how culture forms. Not through mandates or policies. Through the spread of behavior. When people mirror what they experience, they create that experience for others. The influence spreads organically. Think about confidence. When you demonstrate genuine confidence, not arrogance, but calm certainty, people feel it. They begin to trust themselves more. They take more initiative. They speak up. They take risks. And when they do this, others around them notice. They begin to mirror it too. The same happens with calmness. When you remain steady during turbulence, people learn that steadiness is possible. They begin to practice it themselves. They stop panicking. They start problem solving. And this calmness spreads through the team. Vision works this way too. When you speak clearly about where you are going and why it matters, people begin to see it. The vision becomes real to them. They start to think in terms of that vision. They make decisions aligned with it. They communicate it to others. The vision spreads without you repeating it endlessly. This is the power of natural leadership. You do not have to control everything. You do not have to convince everyone personally. You embody the qualities you want to see. You demonstrate them consistently. And they spread through the system naturally. But here is the key: this only works if it is real. You cannot fake confidence and expect it to spread. You cannot pretend calm while feeling chaos and expect others to become calm. The qualities must be genuine. They must live in you first. This is why all the previous chapters matter. You have been building the internal foundation. The self-awareness. The emotional intelligence. The clear communication. The decision-making ability. The responsibility. The trust. Now these qualities become contagious. Now they spread. Now they create influence that extends far beyond your direct interactions. The long-term mastery of leadership. Leadership is not a destination. It is a practice. A lifelong one. There is no point where you have arrived, where you can stop learning, where you can coast on past success. This might sound exhausting. It is not. It is liberating. Because it means you never have to be perfect. You only have to keep practicing. Keep refining. Keep growing. Long-term mastery in leadership means committing to continuous development. You are always observing yourself. Always learning from experience. Always adjusting your approach. Think of leadership like learning a musical instrument. In the beginning, every note requires conscious effort. You think about finger placement. You focus on timing. You practice basic scales. It is deliberate and slow. But over time, something shifts. The basics become automatic. Your fingers know where to go. You stop thinking about technique and start feeling the music. You can improvise. You can respond to what is happening in the moment. Leadership develops the same way. Early on, you think consciously about your presence, your words, your decisions. You work deliberately on emotional regulation. You plan your communication carefully. This is natural. This is necessary. But with practice, these skills become integrated. You do not have to think about staying present. You are present. You do not have to remember to listen fully. You listen naturally. You do not have to remind yourself to take responsibility. It is simply who you are. This integration takes time. Years, not months. But every interaction is practice. Every conversation is an opportunity. Every decision is a lesson. You are always learning. Always refining. Always deepening your capacity. Long-term mastery also means accepting that you will make mistakes. Many of them. You will handle situations poorly. You will react instead of respond. You will miss signals. You will misunderstand. You will fail. This is not a problem. This is the process. Every mistake is information. Every failure is feedback. The question is not whether you will err. The question is whether you will learn from it. Great leaders look back at their younger selves with compassion and humor. They see the mistakes they made. They recognize how much they have grown. And they know they still have much to learn. This humility is essential. The moment you think you have mastered leadership completely, you have stopped growing. And when you stop growing, you start declining. Stay curious. Stay open. Stay willing to be wrong and learn. How leadership transforms relationships. Natural leadership changes every relationship you have. Not because you try to control people. Because you show up differently. And when you show up differently, others respond differently. In friendships, leadership means being someone people can count on. The person who remains steady. Who tells the truth kindly. Who celebrates others' success without envy. Who supports during difficulty without judgment. Friends notice this. They gravitate toward you. They seek your perspective. They trust your counsel. Not because you position yourself as better or wiser. Because you are present, honest, and consistent. In family relationships, leadership means holding space for others while maintaining your own boundaries. It means not taking responsibility for others' emotions while remaining compassionate. It means modeling the behavior you hope to see without demanding it. Family members respond to this. They may resist initially, especially if you are changing patterns. But over time, they begin to trust your consistency. They respect your boundaries. They appreciate your presence. The relationship deepens. In romantic partnerships, leadership means being fully yourself while making space for your partner to be fully themselves. It means taking responsibility for your own emotions and reactions. It means communicating clearly about needs and boundaries. It means staying present through conflict. Partners feel this. They feel safe to be vulnerable. They trust that you will not use their openness against them. They know that you will engage honestly. The intimacy deepens because both people can show up authentically. In professional relationships, leadership means being someone others want to work with. Someone who delivers. Who communicates clearly. Who solves problems. Who maintains standards. Who treats people with respect regardless of hierarchy. Colleagues notice this. They want you on their projects. They seek your input. They trust your judgment. Your reputation builds naturally through your behavior, not through self-promotion. Leadership transforms relationships because it transforms you. And when you change, the dynamics around you must change too. Some relationships will deepen. Some will end. Both outcomes are appropriate. You are no longer available for dynamics that require you to be small, inconsistent, or inauthentic. This can be uncomfortable. People may react to your changes. They may try to pull you back into old patterns. Stay steady. Maintain your new way of being. The right relationships will adjust and thrive. The wrong ones will fall away. Trust this process. How leadership transforms work. Leadership changes not just how you work, but what work means to you. It transforms your relationship with challenge, with responsibility, with collaboration. When you lead naturally, work becomes more than tasks. It becomes an opportunity to create value, to solve meaningful problems, to contribute something that matters. This shift in perspective changes everything. You stop seeing obstacles as burdens. You see them as puzzles to solve. You stop seeing difficult people as problems. You see them as opportunities to practice your skills. You stop seeing responsibility as weight. You see it as agency, the power to influence outcomes. This does not mean work becomes easy or always enjoyable. It means your relationship with the difficulty changes. You meet challenges with more confidence. You handle pressure with more calm. You navigate complexity with more clarity. Your effectiveness increases. Not because you work longer hours. Because you work better. You prioritize clearly. You communicate efficiently. You make decisions faster. You solve problems more creatively. You collaborate more effectively. People notice this. Opportunities come to you. Not because you chase them. Because your reputation precedes you. People know you deliver. They know you can be trusted with important work. They know you make situations better, not worse. Your career trajectory changes. Not through manipulation or politics. Through competence and character. You become someone organizations need. Someone teams want. Someone projects require. But here is what matters most: the work itself becomes more fulfilling. Because you are not just doing a job. You are leading. You are creating. You are contributing at a higher level. This brings deep satisfaction that no title or salary can match. This is the real transformation. Work stops being something you have to do and becomes something you choose to do well. This shift in internal experience is profound. It affects your energy, your motivation, your sense of purpose. How leadership transforms identity. Perhaps the deepest transformation is in how you see yourself. Leadership changes your identity. Not who you pretend to be. Who you actually are. In the beginning, you may have felt like you were playing a role. Acting like a leader. Trying on behaviors that felt uncomfortable or unfamiliar. This is normal. This is how growth begins. But over time, something shifts. The behaviors become natural. The qualities become integrated. You are no longer trying to be a leader. You are one. This is not about ego or title. It is about internal recognition. You know you can handle difficult situations. You know you can make good decisions. You know you can be trusted. You know you can lead. This knowing changes how you move through the world. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more clarity. You engage with more presence. You face challenges with more confidence. Others sense this shift. They respond to you differently. They give you more responsibility. They seek your guidance. They trust your judgment. The external world begins to reflect your internal transformation. But here is the beautiful part: you also become more yourself. True leadership does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to become more fully who you are. To develop your natural strengths. To integrate your experiences. To express your authentic values. You stop trying to fit a leadership mold. You create your own approach. You lead in a way that is true to your personality, your values, your strengths. This authenticity makes your leadership even more powerful. Because it is real. Because it is you. Identity transformation also brings peace. You stop questioning whether you are capable. You stop comparing yourself to others constantly. You stop seeking validation externally. You know who you are. You know what you can do. You trust yourself. This does not mean you become arrogant. Real confidence is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It simply is. You know your strengths and your limitations. You are comfortable with both. This integration of identity is perhaps the greatest gift of leadership development. You become more coherent. More aligned. More whole. Your external behavior matches your internal values. Your actions reflect your beliefs. Your life expresses your authentic self. The ripple effect beyond you. Natural leadership creates impact that extends far beyond your immediate sphere. The people you influence go on to influence others. The standards you model get adopted and spread. The culture you create continues after you move on. This is the ultimate measure of leadership. Not what you accomplish while present. What continues in your absence. The values that persist. The behaviors that remain. The standards that endure. Think about people who influenced you years ago. Maybe a teacher, a coach, a mentor. They may not even know the impact they had. But you carry something they gave you. A way of thinking. A standard of excellence. A belief in yourself. And you pass this on to others. This is the ripple effect. Leadership multiplies across time and space. It compounds in ways you will never fully see. Every person you help develop goes on to help others. Every standard you uphold gets carried forward. Every example you set becomes a model. This means your leadership matters more than you realize. The conversation you have today may change someone's trajectory. The example you set this week may influence someone for years. The standard you hold this month may shape a culture for decades. You will not see most of this impact. You will not receive credit for it. That is not the point. The point is that natural leadership creates value that transcends your presence. It lives in the people and systems you touch. This is why integrity matters so much. Why consistency is essential. Why example is powerful. Because you are not just leading for today. You are creating patterns that will echo forward. Make sure those patterns are worthy of repetition. Bringing it all together. Let's connect everything we have explored. Natural leadership emerges when you integrate presence, communication, emotional intelligence, decision-making, responsibility, and trust. These are not separate skills. They work together. They reinforce each other. They create something greater than the sum of parts. Your presence creates the foundation. It allows you to stay centered, aware, and responsive. This presence enables clear communication. You speak with intention. You listen with full attention. You create understanding. Clear communication builds emotional intelligence. You learn to read others accurately. You regulate your own emotions. You create psychological safety. This safety allows for better decisions. People share information freely. They contribute honestly. They collaborate effectively. Good decisions build trust. Especially when you own the outcomes. Trust creates followership. People choose to align with you. They support your direction. They contribute their best. And this cycle continues. Each element strengthens the others. Over time, your leadership becomes natural. It flows. It does not require constant effort. It simply is who you are. This integration is the goal. Not to master each skill separately, but to embody them together. To live them as a unified way of being. This is when leadership becomes natural. When it stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You already have the traits. Here is the truth: everything you need to lead naturally already exists within you. You have presence, you have simply learned to access it more deliberately. You have the ability to communicate, you have simply developed more skill. You have emotional intelligence, you have simply become more aware of it. Leadership is not about acquiring foreign qualities. It is about activating what is already there. About developing capacities that have always been yours. About becoming more fully yourself, not someone else. Think about moments when you have led naturally already. Maybe with friends. Maybe in a crisis. Maybe in a casual conversation. You showed up. You influenced. You made a difference. That was real leadership. You just did not name it as such. Now you are learning to do this intentionally. To access these qualities on demand. To develop them more fully. To express them more consistently. But the core has always been there. You are not building something from nothing. You are cultivating what already exists. This is liberating. It means you do not have to become someone you are not. You do not have to fake it. You do not have to force it. You simply have to develop what is already yours. You have the capacity for presence. For clear communication. For emotional awareness. For good decisions. For taking responsibility. For building trust. These are human capacities. You were born with them. Life may have taught you to suppress them. To doubt them. To hide them. But they remain. Your work is not to create these qualities. Your work is to activate them. To practice them. To strengthen them. To trust them. To let them guide you. This is the essence of becoming a leader others follow naturally. You become more yourself. More aligned. More authentic. More whole. And people respond to this authenticity. They trust it. They follow it. The practice continues. Leadership is not a destination you reach and then maintain. It is a practice you engage in daily. Some days you will embody it fully. Other days you will struggle. Both are part of the journey. On good days, celebrate your progress. Notice how far you have come. Acknowledge your growth. Let yourself feel the satisfaction of development. This reinforces the practice. It builds confidence. It motivates continued effort. On difficult days, show yourself compassion. You will handle situations poorly. You will react instead of respond. You will forget what you know. This is human. This is normal. The question is not whether you will stumble. The question is whether you will learn from it and continue. Great leaders are not those who never fall. They are those who rise each time they fall. Who extract lessons from mistakes. Who adjust their approach. Who keep practicing despite setbacks. This resilience is itself a form of leadership. When others see you handle failure with grace, they learn to do the same. When they see you persist despite difficulty, they find their own persistence. When they see you learn from mistakes, they become more willing to take risks. Your practice teaches others how to practice. Your growth inspires their growth. Your persistence models persistence. This is leadership in action. This is the ripple effect. This is how influence spreads naturally. So continue. Keep practicing presence. Keep refining communication. Keep developing emotional intelligence. Keep making decisions and owning outcomes. Keep building trust through consistency. Keep leading through example. Each day is an opportunity. Each interaction is practice. Each challenge is a lesson. You are always learning. Always growing. Always becoming more capable of leading naturally. Your journey forward. You stand now with everything you need. You understand presence. You have developed communication skills. You have grown emotional intelligence. You know how to make decisions and own them. You understand how trust is built. You see how natural leadership emerges. The question is no longer whether you can lead. The question is, will you? Will you practice these principles? Will you embody these qualities? Will you show up consistently as the leader you are becoming? The answer matters. Not just for you. For everyone your leadership will touch. For the culture you will create. For the ripple effect that will extend far beyond what you can see. You have a choice in every moment. To be present or distracted. To communicate clearly or carelessly. To respond or react. To decide or avoid. To own or deflect. To be consistent or erratic. These choices define your leadership. Make them consciously. Make them intentionally. Make them in alignment with the leader you are becoming. Remember, leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being present, responsible, and trustworthy. It is about showing up consistently. It is about leading through example. It is about creating an environment where others can thrive. You do not need to be the most talented person. You do not need to be the smartest or the most experienced. You need to be someone people can trust. Someone who embodies the qualities they value. Someone who makes them better through your presence. This is within your reach. It starts with your next interaction. Your next decision. Your next moment of presence. These moments accumulate. They create your leadership. They define your impact. They shape your legacy. So step forward with confidence. Not arrogance. Not certainty about every outcome. But confidence in your capacity to learn, to grow, to handle what comes. Confidence in the qualities you have been developing. Confidence in the leader you are becoming. The world needs natural leaders. People who lead through example, not force. Who influence through character, not manipulation. Who create trust through consistency. Who build others up rather than tearing them down. You can be this kind of leader. You are becoming this kind of leader. The traits are already within you. You are learning to activate them. To trust them. To express them fully. This is your journey. This is your practice. This is your leadership emerging naturally from who you are and how you show up. Lead well. Lead naturally. Lead with the fullness of who you are. You already have what it takes. Now go and use it.